double checking, eh?
Yeah.
Good man. I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Connected. What are you filming for? This is what you call organized. You've got to have all your shit. You've got to have all your shit, Dave. Well done, let's see. All this work. See? Organized. Compressor, puncture repair kit. Dave just had this tire fixed and they didn't do a good enough job and the valve was leaking, so yeah. You gotta be organized. Like tactical distributors, Impossible 15 gets 15% off.
Okay. Life's changing, guns are changing, hunting's changing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get to that. You're going on a hunt. You're up here because you're going on a hunt.
Yeah, I'm passing through. I'm going up to Maine. I've been putting in for a Maine moose tag for like 25 years. I literally, it was funny. I was up at, where the hell was I? I was up at doing like
you couldn't get it when your dad was in office. Imagine that.
No, it's straight. Yeah, if I'd have drawn that tag when my dad was in office, like I wouldn't have been able to go on the hunt. You know?
Isn't that something? Can you imagine that when your dad's the president, you still can't draw the tag?
Well, what was worse was when he was president, a friend of mine had someone bail on like a fully paid for like Kamchatka bear moose combo in Russia, and they're like, "Hey man, this guy bailed. Like he had a private plane and everything, which makes it a lot easier to get to that part of the world if you can do it. Like I go to Mongolia commercial, I do it if I have to. But like, I was like, dude, I would so love to do that hunt, but like I can't go. Now. Kamchatka's about as it's literally Siberia, right? It's remote away from anything Russian and whatever.
Yeah, it's there on the border.
I was like, zero chance I could go on this hunt right now because that would be Russian collusion, and I was like, I had to turn down what would have been an awesome hunt.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Like you can go to Alaska and hunt, and you're about 2 miles away from Russia. But so you're going on a moose hunt. 25 years. Yeah, Thomas, I can't imagine that. My dad's president, and I can't get a tag to shoot a moose. Like,
listen, I put in like everyone else.
You guys should have actually cheated and colluded.
Well, what's interesting about this one, so I was up in Maine on some political stuff a couple months ago and sat next to, on the plane ride back, in back of the bus and coach, coming back, flying down to Florida. I guess I had to go through New York or something like that. Sitting next to a guy, starts up a conversation. Happened to be a big Trump fan from Maine, yada, yada, yada. Has an outfitting business. He's like, oh, cool. Dude, I want you to come up and do that. Like, what's the one thing in Maine that you were doing? You were looking for hunting or fishing up? I was like, well, no, I've been putting in for the moose hunt for 25 years because it's like almost impossible to draw. He goes,
I know. I mean, I've never even tried New Hampshire because it's so hard.
I'm literally sitting next to the guy on a plane, just start up a random conversation. And most of the time, like when I do that on a plane, I was like, just earphones, like leave me alone. I just sort of wear the hat. Just, I don't need to, especially coming out of parts of Maine because it's a little different than where I'm at in Florida. It's pretty lib. And so I was but started talking to the guys like, well, listen, I have an outfitting business. We got to. I just want you to come up and do the main hunt with us. I was like, well, like I didn't draw. He's like, no, we got an outfitter tag for you. Like, just come up and like.
Oh, that's
just
wonderful.
Started up a random conversation.
I mean, it's nice when you get something good because you guys get so much bullshit.
Yeah, I think we take our undue share of bullshit. So
so it's nice when it works out.
I'm okay taking a perk every once in a while.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. Because we were talking about it off camera, but so you've been in Alaska and stuff and hunted and So the moose here obviously much smaller, but it's like
dude, like I said, I'm from New England, right? So it's like I grew up in Connecticut, but like it was always out of reach. Like it was almost like you don't even like. When I say I've been putting in for 25 years, I'm sure someone will put in a FOIA request and say, you didn't put in for all of those years, almost because some years you're just like, it's futile. Like, but I've been putting in for a long time. You've tried your
whole adult life.
When I go out west, I post a picture in Montana, I will get 30 letters from Montana Fish and Game. This newspaper wanted to make sure that you had a fishing license. Like they will put in a FOIA request to try to a freedom of information to see if I was like, well, it doesn't even say that I'm hunting or fishing, but they're checking anyway.
But it's so stupid because any of us, anyone that knows you personally, like I don't know anyone personally that is more into conservation, the outdoors, and hunting and fishing than you at a personal level. I just don't like. You're fucking bananas about it.
Yeah.
And the idea that people who love it that much, like at the level, I will say, bring yours down a little to the level where we all love it. Like our friend group that hunts and everything. The idea that you wouldn't have a license or you wouldn't want to pay because that's what goes to conservation. 100%. It's like one's trying to cheat.
And the speeches I give and the times I offer myself up as a donation, I've offered myself up like at SCI, like, hey, I will be present for your hunt, and like, a hunt goes from selling for 25 grand. We sold one for 600 grand a couple years ago. You know what I mean? We sold one this year for 300. Like, just to have me come along.
That's so cool.
You know what I mean?
And all that.
I'll do that. And it's, again, it's like,
money goes to conservation.
It goes to conservation. So, happy to put it out there. But like,
I'll buy my $25 fishing license, okay? And if it's $1,000, I'll still buy it.
Well, exactly. But you'll also see it like, dude, it's still easy to run a foul. You can have the best intentions, think you're like, waterfowl's the worst for that, because there's always something they can get you for. Like, and it's like, you don't even think about it, like, well, there's a feather in your vein from yesterday, and I was like, well, but it's not from but like, and then it's like they get you. So I have to play the game as clean as possible, but the reality is, like, you can still make a mistake. It's like,
but it's sad for you in that sense, because you're right. Waterfowl is it's very easy. They can always catch you. It's like when we have vendors make parts for our guns, QC can fail every part that comes in.
Correct.
They can. It's the same thing with like waterfowl hunting. I know, you're right. And it's like, it would suck too if something like that happened to you, because they would have to make an example out of you. Where
is that a black duck or a hen mallard? It's like,
yeah.
Man, I didn't realize that was a one bird on that. But
and if it weren't you, and it's a reasonable game warden, and they know that you're not a poacher and you're out here, like, they're smart. They can tell instantly. It's like they would give you the benefit of the doubt.
But what's interesting, though, and listen, I have a lot of friends that are game wardens. I mean, Jason Vincent is former game warden. I mean, we started Field Ethos together. It's like, but the reality, what's strange is, and I saw it like especially up here, like a lot of the game wardens actually aren't hunters. They don't like those. A lot of the institutions, not all, and but certain, like New York. I spoke with the head of the DEC in New York a couple years ago. He spoke at an event that I was at, and we were chatting.
Yeah,
he was like, well, it's interesting. I'm the only hunter in like.
That's bananas that someone would want to become a game warden.
But you're taking all of your fund. Well, but it's sort of what the left does, right? They sort of appropriate institutions, and then they use it to do their bidding. And I was like, well, so what kind of hunting? He's like, well, I shot a turkey once. I was like, wait, like the head of New York Fish and Wildlife has shot a turkey, like. But like, there's there's a lot of deer shot in New York, a lot of hunters, great hunting tradition.
People don't realize
don't see it that way,
it's just the city. Like the rest of New York is rural and kind of redneck. It's like a great place.
And I have my cabin in the Catskills. I go up there, great fly fishing, great hunting, great waterfowl, great sort of actually a great sportsman state actually. And you got Montauk and like the spearfishing and the deep sea stuff off of Long Island.
The laws and stuff make it weird, and it's bad. Like with Illinois as well. Like Illinois, what a great state for a lot of hunting and stuff, and Chicago ruins a lot of it.
But I was shocked to find out like there was no one basically in his department that actually hunted, and yet they're getting millions of dollars of licenses to be able to decide what those people should be able to do, and so that's what's
because
you may not always get the benefit of the doubt because someone's looking to fulfill an agenda. I've been blessed so far, but who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have like a serious love for Africa currently, and
you do.
And so,
So
we're gonna have an open house over there next year.
Nice.
So maybe you come over. I don't know. But over there, it's like there would be no animals in Africa if it weren't for white hunters that went there, and that's just the truth.
Yeah.
Like American or European, if it weren't for them going to hunt, there would be no animals. And people can't understand it in America because it's like, oh, well, we can't. You shouldn't shoot elephants. It's like, go live where there are elephants in the wild and tell me that, or lions.
Ivan Carter's become a pretty good friend of mine, and he's probably one of the leading like when you hear his stories about conservation and what gets stuff done. His big saying is like, you can't solve third world problems with first world solutions.
That's correct.
And if you've spent any actual time like on the ground in Africa, you actually understand that. A lion is beautiful and majestic. And when you live in a nice glass tower in New York City,
it also eats all your cattle and it will eut your children.
Yeah, you walk 5 miles to go to the river because you're fishing. Like when I used to hunt in the Kilimanjaro and stuff like that up in Tanzania, like. The floodplains, like the village is far away from the water because when it floods, you'd be on the water. So like you have to walk. Like I literally found a leg still attached to a shoe, in the high grass. Yeah,
because I found a human skull.
Yeah, I believe it 100%. Like so you do that every day, and that animal stops being so majestic. You lose a child or two, you lose your leg, you lose a cow, and it's like, well, that lion is no longer majestic; it's now a liability.
Yeah,
your cow. It seems like, oh, it's just a cow. It's like, no, that's your wealth.
Can you imagine what
they poison the carcass and kill the entire pride?
Yeah, it's true, and people don't realize. And I've said it before. Like when I go on a lion hunt on Monday. So in a couple days, I go on another lion and leopard hunt and everything. And lion and leopard, it's sort of the same thing. Like these little villages, for whatever reason, they raise cattle and sheep. or goats mostly, and that's their food. And if it's in an area where there are lions just live close by. And all they have to do is jump a fence.
It's
and they
easy.
Always got a meal.
If you're the lion, that's a natural thing.
So it would make sense, but when we see them like in a zoo or on television, you don't have to deal with it. But a 500-pound cat, and because what happens is all these villages, they just snare them and kill them all because or
they'll take one of the carcass of it, just put some lye on top of it. They'll kill the whole pride.
Yeah.
But now a guy like you comes in. It's a big ticket game. You can't. You're not allowed to talk about things like that as a commodity, right? Because that makes you a terrible person. But the reality is, those guys, when they become trackers and guides and whatever it may be, they'll make more in a week of tips from a guy like me, 1 week of a long season, or 2 weeks of a long season from a guy like me, than they would raising cattle for 2 years. And so now, if they know like that tip is associated with making sure that guy gets that,
they
line,
take care of the animals.
They take care of they're okay sacrificing a cow here and there. They're it's
I mean, they told me that my lion hunt that I did in Mozambique last year was half the money for the entire village for the entire year.
100%.
And so there was 2 lion hunts on that property, like 150,000 acres, and a pretty densely populated. Like we saw a dozen lions at least every day on a 15-day hunt. And they shot 2 on 150,000 acres, and that was the entire money that village needed the entire year.
And that's the older lion that's probably, by the way, killing the younger ones coming up, and actually probably doing more population damage than if you didn't kill them. But like no one wants to listen to that.
No, when we talked about the media, remember Cecil the lion? Yeah. Well, lions live to 10 years old in the wild. Cecil was 14. Like he had no teeth. He would have died that winter, and it was like the most. I mean, you couldn't have shot a better lion.
Well, so it happened to me. I mean, sort of how I became a known entity in hunting was like, I had, PH over there released pictures of me doing an elephant hunt, and same thing. They do incredible crop damage. They're
elephants are the worst. They're worse than lions. They push over. I made videos in 15 days of I probably have 15 videos that we just happened to run into. She's like on 150,000 acres. We're driving around where a bull elephant is pushing over a 60-year-old tree to eat one root and then walk off. One morning we had to, on a road that we were going to check bait where I eventually shot my lion. One morning we had to cut and pull 3 trees off the road that weren't there the evening before.
Yeah, no, they're incredible. And but what they also don't understand, I mean, so it happened, someone took pictures of it at one of the shows and then started putting it on the internet, and then literally front page headlines all over the world, like Donald Trump is poaching elephants, and I'm like, poaching elephants? Like in Zimbabwe, like I went to Zimbabwe to go poaching elephants. Like, he was shooting them in a high fence. I'm like, first of all, you understand, like there's no high fencing elephants. They go where they want. Like it's, but like the narrative was like I was shooting a tied up elephant, and this is what it was, and the meat just spoils. Like, I wish I had taken actually more pictures of it, because perhaps the most impressive thing I've ever seen in the outdoors, and I've done a lot, was just how quickly a village can get from far away with buckets, hacksaws, machetes, axes, and clean an elephant out to the point where like the vultures are being like, there's nothing left. And when I say nothing, I mean the eyes are like every.
They use the bones too. Yeah. To make things.
Yeah. It was within 2 hours of this thing. It fed an entire village that was like there, and they were like they could not
probably
have been
for a month.
Oh yeah, they could not have been more grateful. I mean, you understand like when people like if I'd have gave them $1,000, it wouldn't have meant anything to them compared to this meat.
Like you and I going and shooting them, like it's still dangerous. Shooting an elephant is dangerous. There's a 99.9% chance you and I are going to shoot it, will be successful, not be killed. When the villagers go to shoot one, because they go and kill them sometimes, and sometimes they even just stone them to death.
Undergunned, not sighted in.
Sometimes just with rocks, and there's videos online. Like, that's some sad shit. Like, elephants are assholes, and I'll shoot an elephant if, there's an overpopulation in an area, or, there's enough of a population where you need to manage it. I would shoot one every day, like, whatever. But there's times where those villagers don't even have a gun and they stone them to death. You talk about like cruel, like shooting an elephant in the brain is the best death that's going to happen. Or
stabbing it with, sort of poison spears and, watching it, essentially, bleed out and rot out over weeks. And that's again, the average person in America that hasn't actually, they've been to South Africa, done the Cape Town wine tour. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same as being like in the Kilimanjaro, being in the Salou.
Cape Town is not South Africa when it comes to hunting.
Or the rest, certainly. And once you get out of South Africa, it's an entirely different world again.
I mean, Cape Town, that's like going to like New York or whatever. It's like, that's awesome, but it's not America.
But they drive through a wildlife park and assume this is what it's like. And it's like, you saw 7 leopards? No. Really? That's amazing. Like that's not how it is.
Yeah, like, in Kruger, where lion or leopard just lie around.
Yeah.
Or lions live to be 16 years old. Yeah, that's not a real thing. That's just because you're at a zoo and it makes you feel like you're in the wild.
Correct.
Okay, well, I want to ask you some other things because we can go on about that all day. What do you like best? Fishing, spearfishing, or hunting?
Oof.
You got to pick one.
Well, see, I sort of look at them all the same. I mean, between fishing and hunting.
Oh,
I'd
I
say
actually
so.
thought you would say fishing.
No. Spearfishing I look at as hunting.
Oh, well, yeah,
so,
I guess that's true. It's different.
You know what I mean? I just got back from doing some pretty epic shit. We're going to, launch on Field Ethos pretty soon. We're out in Turkey doing, bluefin tuna with a spear gun, which was like...
I saw pictures.
Like, it was fucking insane, dude. It was like...
That's cool.
As intense as it... Probably not the most challenging. I think some of the more challenging stuff is like... you had to have perfect shot placement and your equipment had to be perfect because like we had, a big one, literally break 1,000-pound crimped wire. That's how powerful these, like towing around a Zodiac.
How big do you think it was?
North of 6.
Spear a 600-pound fish,
like,
Tom, that is very strong.
They're really, so... now you could get them. You could get them going and chum them and do that kind of stuff. So it actually wasn't as challenging as like saying going off the Montauk or Block Island.
New York. My buddy I was telling you in Virginia Beach does. Where visibility is worse.
Yeah, this sucks. Like I've hit bottom and not known I was bottom. Like I'm seeing fish by looking up and I can see their shadows. Cold water, deeper stuff. You're watching the news. We pinged 7 great whites in the area. I'm like, well, you pinged 7. Like, how many? Like, we're not tagged. Like,
so there's
with pinging stuff.
There's 2,000.
So that's awesome and a lot of fun.
Like, do you like it because of how much of it is because of the risk, whether it be drowning, sharks, like things? I mean, because there's a lot of shit can go wrong underwater.
Yeah, I've always had like a really a low tolerance for self-preservation. Like I have no I just do. I'm the guy that used to jump off mountains with a parachute. I'm a licensed pilot. I'm a trimix diver going down to 350 feet.
So you've always
pushed that. So I don't know if it. I don't know. I mean, the tuna thing actually oftentimes wasn't as you didn't have to go as deep or sort of risk the blackout stuff. Now that where you'd get screwed up is if you shot and you got tangled in your line, like you're never coming back up.
That's the thing that. Make sure you get some pictures of this so we can post for the podcast, please.
Let me see if I can find this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you're underwater, like if you're on land or even in the air to some degree, like something goes wrong, you have time. Like underwater, like your time is so limited if something goes wrong. And just your capability
I have a good
to
breath
move
hold, but it's not that good. Like 4:15, but under stress, it's a whole different. That static breath hold,
it's not 30 minutes.
That's a whole.
Not that
that's
good.
a whole different
4
world.
minutes, 15 seconds. That's not that good.
Well, I mean, he'll tell you
it's
too.
Different. Like I
you
can't translate that to bottom time. Like there's guys that can go do 4 minutes underwater, whereas I can stick
Well,
my head underwater in a pool. Literally be focusing on not twitching a single muscle and hit 4:15.
Oh, it's pretty good. But so Thomas, you could train. Well, I don't know. You smoke so much, but you could train to do that. But there's guys like there's this Cuban dude that was 20 years ago. He's the deep dive champion. And holy shit, Thomas, you're gonna have to put this picture on the podcast. How big was that one?
North of 4.
Did you?
Yeah. We just got a thumbs up in the middle of the podcast showing selfies.
Hey, did you? You got to send me that picture if you don't mind, and I'll check with Jason.
I just see when they want to drop it for field. We got some awesome video. Just because it's just such an adventure. Like it was.
Well, why do you think you like? I mean, why do you like that stuff in the adventure? It's the risk. You've always been a risk taker.
I think I've always been a risk taker. That way, and probably no different than like I'm sort of willing to put myself in the arena that way, and so.
I mean, even a moose hunt, like a moose hunt can get hairy.
Well, listen, the leopard that I shot in Africa, I shot at 6 yards coming. Like it wasn't wounded, but
I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it. I'm going on Monday.
That was when you could still do it with dogs, like we would mountain lion.
Oh, well, you know, you can't. You can in Botswana.
Okay,
still.
some countries eliminated it. Some, but like, and I got one of the great compliments of my life from my PH at the time, who was, old South African Special Forces guy from the Angola War. So just tough, different level of,
that's a different level.
That psyops, like through pain kind of shit that, the Geneva Convention didn't sanction it. So you're hearing the stories and you're like, that guy just came up and he's like, well, son, or boy, I guess he called me, that answers the question. I was like, well, what's that? He's like, whether you have a pair of balls or not. Because I just, this thing came out of high grass at 6 yards and with a rifle, right? Just
was it?
Oh yeah,
shotgun?
No, not shotgun. Like because we were we were checking baits and they hit the track and hit this thing at 6 yards and it slid between my feet. I jumped and went between.
That is a cat that is lightning fast at 18 feet.
Yeah, what I always say is
Thomas. I shot a buffalo at 9 yards, and Thomas was videoing, and he ran and climbed a tree with the tracker.
Wouldn't be the first time that happened. So don't think any less of yourself. But
9.
You know how fast
that's 50% long. Not as fast as a leopard.
Hey,
not even close. Yeah.
Either way,
and surprisingly less mean.
Yeah, I when I first heard about hunting them with dogs, I was thinking American lions. So
you bay them in a tree and it's different.
Yeah, bay them in a tree and then you shoot them. And so I was introduced to a guy that invited me and wanted me to go on a hunt with him in Botswana, and it was by my PH in South Africa, and he and I, Red Robertson, shout him. We go on he goes with me on every hunt in Africa because I trust him and I know he'll.
And you need that.
If somebody tried to kidnap me or something, he would get in the gunfight with me. So he's cool. Anyway, he introduced me to them. I was like, I don't know, with dogs. And they started describing this hunt, and it sounds so good because essentially they said the guy showed me pictures of his truck, and there were bullet holes in the hood of his truck because
it's coming up
the dogs run the leopard to you, and the leopard then probably last second understands what's going on.
They make eye contact. You're the threat, not the dogs. And
so there's been, he said, well, whatever. There's been like 4 or 5 leopards, 6 leopards shot on that vehicle that he currently has on the hood.
Yeah, if you want to see how vicious a leopard is, there's plenty of YouTube videos just releasing leopards back into the wild. They left the window open a crack so they could pull a rope to open up the cage, and this thing does 3 paw swipes through the window, and the guy's got 1,000 stitches.
Yeah.
And well, what I would say is people when they're to understand cat strength, especially African cat strength, just think of your house cat.
Probably only 200 pounds.
Yeah,
it's not like a lion.
But you've all seen a house cat jump from the floor to the top of a refrigerator, and that's a lazy house cat that's being fed carb kibble
that hasn't lived in the wild for
watch a leopard carry a zebra. It's an animal that weighs 4 times what it is, up a tree to get it off the ground.
Leopards are amazing.
It's a spectacular animal, So I didn't think I'd actually like doing the dog thing, and I didn't particularly like doing the sitting in a blind for 3 weeks. Is also painful, and I've done plenty of both.
Yeah,
but dude, the dog thing changed my mind on the intensity of that hunt was almost unlike anything else.
That's crazy. Would you so spearfishing or hunting large mammals, or do you like waterfowl the best?
No, I'd say large mammals.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah.
What about shooting wise? So do you and your brother both shoot extreme long range?
Yeah.
Who's better? Eric said he's better.
I don't know about that. I don't know about long range. Eric's a great shotgun shooter. He spends a lot of time shooting shotgun. I spend more. Eric's, and this, but he's sort of interesting in that my free time, outside of just shooting, I'm hunting or fishing. Eric's building rifles.
Yeah.
That he's chambering his own rounds, and he's so anal. It's actually perfect. He could probably never make any money as a gunsmith because he'll spend 3 days setting up feeler gauges to make sure that there's literally zero run out. If that, or as little as there is possible, that a regular gunsmith probably,
that's
even
the cool
the best
thing
in the
about
world,
handmade things because if you don't have to duplicate it,
oh, dude,
you can make
he's
one
made
perfect.
probably less than a couple dozen guns, but not one of them isn't a quarter-minute gun when you play with it. You know what I mean? Because he does take the time to do that. So, but I'm the guy that's this vacation I'm going to Mongolia and living in a yurt and chasing sheep, and so we're very different that way. We're both long-range fanatics. I probably do a lot more of the shooting because I put myself in that position. I'm out west, and that means we're going to bring a couple hundred rounds and we're going to shoot 2 miles, and we're gonna go play this.
Is that the thing? Like
He's more mechanical than me in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Because I knew he was building right. Like you load ammo, right? You load your
I'll do that for my super accurate guns, and then I like to shoot factory too. Because like if I have a range that I'm only going to be able to shoot 600-700 yards, it's not going to matter that much. Once you start going out at 1,000, then I got to get my ES right because I'm going to start missing targets just from pure vertical, which I can actually solve if I take the time. But I don't want to. Like I'll shoot a couple hundred rounds of center fire every weekend. Yeah. Like that's a lot of reloading time. Like I don't have 6-7 hours a week to anneal and chamfer and I go through the process and and then retest and then watch for barrel changes. Like,
what's your favorite part of that then? Shooting long range. Like, how'd you get into extreme long? Like 2 miles is ridiculously far.
So I got like Jeff Brozovich became a friend, one of the best shooters I know. He's a guy that runs website called Long Range Only. Dude, honestly, I met so many people from hunting and shooting literally online through social media, and they're like,
really?
And it was like when I came out and did with the elephant thing, like they were attacking me, but like they're so used to people doing I'm so sorry, I'll never fucking do it again. I'm gonna go vegan for 6 months and pretend that like I did the opposite. I actually was like, no, fuck you. Here's the facts about conservation. Here's where the money goes. Your argument that you should be doing a bullshit photo safari is wrong because the $200 that person spends and zero anything else isn't moving any needles to. I started doing
and the government's still going to kill elephants.
Correct.
Like so.
By the way, I've had the phone call where they're like, "Hey, can you come help us?" Because they know I can shoot. So they'll be like, "Hey, can you come help us cull 30 elephant?" I'm like, "Dude, I can't."
Yeah. If there's some of the governments in Southern Africa are not that responsible. Most are though, and if they're not, so there's quotas to hunt on the land, on all the land, which a lot of people don't understand. So the government and biologists will give the landowners a quota, and you're supposed to shoot this. Well, you're supposed to shoot this many animals. And if someone is irresponsible and they own the land and they don't allow hunting or they don't do it themselves, because there's a lot of wealthy Europeans and Americans that own property over there, and they'll do it all themselves. And that's what I would do.
But we do it in the U.S. too. I mean, how many friends I have? The government
comes out and shoot them if you don't. So it's like so it's better for them to get money
100%.
And you shoot them than them to pay money for a government official to go.
Yeah, well, we have the same. I mean, how many times I get a call a year, and it's usually around early February. It's the end of the Texas whitetail season. Some of my friends, and they're like, "Hey, dude, like part of their lease is they have to follow the QDMA rules, and they have to call 75 does."
We went on together was like, hey, every time we'd stop, if there's a mature doe, shoot it.
Yeah, so they put me on the water tower where I can cover 1,000 yards. I'll bring my long range guns and go do culling. It's not hunting, but it's part of that process. So. I don't know. I've always been fascinated.
Responsible landowner, and like a steward of the land and the animals, because you got to take care of them.
Yeah,
like starving to death or being eaten by another animal is the worst death. Like getting shot.
Yeah, and nothing dies of old age in nature. Like
not too much.
Essentially nothing. Like it's usually a really bad way to go.
Yeah. I mean, normally, because you'd be eaten or starve. Like all that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where's your favorite place to fish? Because you fly fish.
I love to. I do it all, but now that we're in Florida, like I'm doing. I used to always fish a lot when I was down there, but like now I live there. Like I can go off my dock at night, and we have golf courses in the area, so there's great bass fishing and like.
Well, do you prefer that, or do you like offshore stuff more?
Well,
because I've seen you.
They're all different.
On the beach with your kids.
I do a lot of stuff on the beach because honestly, like where I'm at, like we're getting into that season now. Like I can go catch blacktip sharks off the beach with spinning tackle. Like, heavy spinning tackle, but dude, they fight better than a sailfish. They jump higher than a sailfish. They spin. Like, it's some of the great, and I can go do it from the beach, and guess what? If it's not happening in an hour and a half, I go back. Like, I have a boat, and I'm like, I don't want to, problem with a boat is it's 3 hours, when you're done, just to be able to clean everything off and take care of it. So I love a lot of the land-based stuff. I mean, we go catch big hammerheads off the beach, and
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, tiger sharks. I'll show you some more pictures, but like, I caught a 12-footer earlier this year. Like, it's a little bit more work, right? You're fishing stand-up gear, harnesses, 130 tackle.
How you like that, Thomas? Let's go to the beach and pull a 12-foot shark in.
I'll wrestle a shark to the bottom of the ocean.
Using kayaks to bring out your bait. This isn't a huge one, but this one went like 11 and change.
Oh, it's not a huge one, Thomas.
From the beach with stand-up tackle.
Screw that.
And by the way, that's what people don't understand. In Florida, like, that's within 100 yards of shore. Like that's all. That's just swimming there the whole
fishing
time. Like,
from the shore. You can swim out farther than you can cast.
Yeah.
So you eat it, right? Is that
what's that?
Do you eat it or
no? Just release it.
You just release it.
No, you just release them, and it's great. So I like it all, and then I also have it just. I sort of love the mountains and the rivers. So like I have trout fishing like with fly tackle is a real passion of mine. It may never be the rush of like that run or jumping, but like for me like getting a good drift or whether it's nymphing or whatever. I'm not a snob. Like I'm not a dry fly purist, but like
I think with the fishing, the whole process is very interesting. Where with like hunting land mammals and stuff, a lot of times it's the whole process isn't incredibly interesting. It's the last. The last minute or so, once you see the
depends
animal.
What you're doing. Like I like,
rush. Yeah. I mean,
my dream hunt is like, sheep in like the Yukon, British Columbia. You know what I mean? Like,
well, do you like that because of the physical challenge?
Yes. It's like,
and because you're not spoiled at the Trump Plaza, you're like sleeping in a tent.
Well, I love that. For me, like, people are like, what do you mean? That's your vacation? I was like, my vacation, I lose 20 pounds. You know what I mean? Because that's what you'll lose in a 14-day sheep hunt. If you're doing it right, you're carrying your own pack, you're carrying your own food. There's no base camp. You're not no trails. Like,
I know. I tell people that,
and you may not even see an animal for days at a time. Like,
I mean,
like, people think that
it
it's
tries
so
you
populous
mentally.
with so much animals. I'm like, dude, like it's such hard conditions. Like there may not be. There's not an animal every square mile.
All the sheep and goat stuff is way harder. I mean, that's the thing too. Like mentally, I think those hunts are so tough because you're getting exhausted. So then mentally you're weaker. But then when you don't see animals, because like I'm soft in Africa. It's like we see hundreds of animals every day, no matter what. Well, not every day, but almost every day, no matter what we're doing. And so it keeps me like energized and excited when I see animals. But hey, we're going to put a stalk on. We're going to spend all day doing this, and we do it, and we get within a few hundred yards, and we can really study it. And it's like, give it another year.
I love it.
And we go after another one.
But with Africa, my logic is sort of like, I'm not getting younger. Like I want to do the stuff that really requires. I need my knees, so like I'm banging out my sheep and doing that, and like I've got multiple of the same species of sheep just because I love the challenge.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'll go back to Africa in 15 years, and I won't be losing anything. Whereas I won't be able to maybe do what I'm doing now in the mountains.
There is no one that sheep hunts, like really sheep hunts, that's not incredibly tough. And for me, I think I've spoiled myself so much, like in Africa, that now it's hard for me to consider going on hard hunts again.
It's hard. It's sort of like with me, like I'm so big into like trying to get kids and women into the game, but like there's that fine line sort of between like a little bit of instant gratification to get them coming back. Like you take a kid, on a Maine whitetail deer hunt where you may not see a whitetail in 10 days, like you got like you're probably
Never
not making a
back.
hunter.
Yeah.
But then you bring them to Texas, where like, oh yeah, go call some doe, and you're like, that's a great way to do it. But now he's like, well, I got to be able to shoot 7 deer in a weekend. Like I'm like,
there's a balance. Yeah,
slow down. Like so, that's I'm dealing with that myself with my own kids. It's like trying to find. The happy medium. My oldest son, like
because personalities are different too with the kids. So there's different types.
My oldest
of
son, I took him on a goat hunt at like he was 7, and he crushed it. Like no, like
he did.
It was horseback, so it wasn't as crazy as the hiking hunt, but like it was horseback where we came back to base camp like 2 a.m.
Tough.
We're riding in pitch dark. You couldn't use lights because you're just trying to stay balanced on a horse. This kid was 7. And he absolutely crushed it.
That's awesome.
I have other kids that I couldn't take in a blind for 20 minutes without like. Okay, here's an iPad.
Yeah, but I mean,
and so they're all getting, but they're getting into it differently.
Yeah, I mean, and having 5 kids, I've got 3, and personalities are all very different.
Yeah.
So with 5, you're going to get that. All right. Well, okay. Well, let's switch gears. So you're in Florida now.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any silencers yet?
Yeah.
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 How do you like that compared to?
Well, I was sort of lucky because I got on an SOT in New York, right? So, the big problem I have actually is, my prime passion with it is obviously the long range stuff, and like so many of my guns, like I already have loads, and this like. It's not the same. You throw a can on, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get them. My fix actually was like probably one of the first guns I did a lot. It's interesting. If I shoot, I have a load for when it's just bare, and I have a load for the can. The same load. The only difference is if I put the can on, the first shot will actually hit exactly where the other ones will. The next shot will be exactly 1 minute low, and it will stay 1 minute low forever. Huh. It's really weird. So I don't have to have separate things, but it's the one gun that actually I don't have to,
that's cool.
Play with different stuff. So I've just gotten so used to it. I don't really like cans for hunting because the hunting I'm doing, sheep hunt. It's like, that extra 8 inches on the top of a barrel gets caught on every tree. It's ounces of weight, and when you're when you're
fix, you fold the stock. Just saying.
But it's still weight.
Your ear pros weight.
I don't.
Oh
no,
that is so dumb. You got to put in some earplugs.
I have little foamy.
Oh, okay.
I don't. No.
You were breaking my heart.
No.
I was like, don't do that.
I've turned up deer that most people would
shoot.
shoot.
I called you dumb.
In a second because I don't have it in.
Yeah,
I've done that. Maybe not a sheep, but whitetail where it's like, it's a nice 10-point, but like, I've killed 40 of those. I'm really anal about the ears, but I'll just carry foamies. Like the sheep hunting. Cool. Listen, when you're doing what I do, I used to hunt with Harrison a lot from
hunting
Kuyu,
isn't split second.
Well, and beyond that, like to do it right, you're on the tops, and like I've had sheep hunts where me and the guys will go. I used to do a lot with Jason Hairston and Brendan Burns at Kuyu, and like some badass guys. And like, so I was a D1 rower, so I've got good wind and good cardio. Like, so like we've had outfitters be like, I got to call in like my son. I can't keep up with you guys. Like, but guess what? That could also be the difference between getting a sheep and not.
Yeah.
Every outfitter has a saying that's sort of like, every guy has one good climb in him. Not many have more than that. We're climbing all day long. You know what I mean? It's and so, but we've also been blessed to be able to then get sheep and not eat tag soup, and that's an expensive hunt and a lot of effort to come. I'm not at that point where I'm going to pretend I'd be thrilled.
Yeah,
to have tag soup on a sheep hunt.
Like, there's tons of people that dream about these hunts, and I don't know the percentage, but it's high that quit. Quit before you get there.
My first Yukon sheep, I shot a fannin up in one of Jim Shockey's areas, and I'd called Jim and I was like, man, I totally slipped. I didn't book a sheep hunt, didn't book like sort of a mountain hunt this year. Do you have anything? And he goes, listen, full disclosure, I got a place. There are great sheep up there, but I've not had someone be able to get through the first 3 days of the buckbrush. It's literally, it was like 45-degree slope, mosquito infested, thick, like just gnarly. It was shitty. And he was like, just full disclosure, like I got it. If you can get through there, great. But I won't sell it as a hunt anymore because I think it was like the last 3 guys. I said the longest guy, lasted till the end of day 2 and quit before he even broke the tree line. I was like, I'm in. Like, and I had a blast. I did it, but it was brutal. But like, you just have to sort of want to suffer. You just got to know you're going to suffer. I always say with sheep hunting, like, if you're not questioning why you even do this shit after the first day, like, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough.
It's a different type of hunter.
Yeah,
it is. Because I met one in Africa recently, and and he's working on like the SCI Grand Slam or whatever. Yeah. He's been all over the world doing it, and he was explaining it to me. This guy's got a lot of money, and and staying in the yurts and having to.
That's the only problem with the sheep game is it does require a lot of money, and usually by the time you have a lot of money, you may not have the physical.
Yeah, and that's what he was. And this guy was in his mid-50s, and he was still getting after it. And he's like, "I like to suffer." And I was like, oh, I don't. No,
I love it. Like, it's the great. I'm actually, the COVID thing screwed things up because of Canada and all that stuff. It was just hard. So, I literally got out of shape, not relatively speaking, for me.
But it's a different level of shape for sheep hunting.
Yeah. I train for that hunt, and the training, it's sort of like, Happy Gilmore. It's like, 364 more days till next sheep season. Like, we got to get after it.
Yeah.
Because, like, you don't want to get there. If you're there and out of shape, it's a lot worse than.
It's your age, since we're the same age.
Yes.
If you let it go too far, it's miserable to get back into.
The recovery is just so much harder. Again, I've broken every major bone in my body. Like, I got 15 pins and a plate in my ankle. I've broken my right ankle twice, my left ankle once, both my legs, both my... Like, I'm hoping that medical technology sort of advances ahead of, like, my arthritis. So it's like, I got to stay in shape.
Well,
if I don't...
now. Well, I don't know. You start hurting a lot, then we'll ride around Africa and shoot stuff's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Perfect. Hey, listen, I have no problem doing that. Like, that's the thing. I'm not a sheep snob either. Like, I love going, shooting Texas whitetail and sitting in a blind and going back and having a great time with my buddies, or, getting my kids into it now. Like, there's a point, like, 2 of my boys are really into it. And it's like, I'm basically at the point where, like, I'm never going to pull a trigger again. Like,
if they're with you.
You know what I mean? Like, I took, my son's been to my son's 13. He's been to Mongolia twice. He's been to the Yukon. He's been to Alaska. He's been, he's killed a goat on his own. Like,
oh, that's so
like,
cool.
As I always said, like, if you're into the shit that I'm into, I was like, in my next life, I want to grow up to be you. Like, you know what I mean? Because, like, he's getting to do some stuff that, I didn't get to do cool shit until I could afford to do it because no one was really a hunter in my family.
Yeah, I mean, you think, because I understand, because, I've got kids as well, and it's always an interesting thing. Like, Because what got you and your brother into shooting in the outdoors? Because you know, I know it couldn't have been your father.
No.
And then so you guys weren't raised that way. And
Well,
then,
so my grandfather was a blue collar electrician from communist Czechoslovakia. He saw what we were blessed with in America, but he also saw perhaps some of the perils or pitfalls of that. So he took me to communist Czechoslovakia every year from I was 5 years old. I started going there for 6-8 weeks every summer. And it was basically, there's the woods, I'll see you at dark. Got me an air gun. There was no hunting there because he wasn't a communist party elite. He's an electrician.
oh, so they're not.
And so
allowed.
the hunting was, there's a hunting culture, but it was for the wealthy. It's sort of opposite of America. And well, it depends on where you are in America, right?
Yeah.
But opposite of what perhaps people think of American hunting as. And so, but he got me into woodsmanship and the outdoorsmanship and sort of the, more importantly, perhaps the value of time around a campfire. And I'd sit there and I'd make torches and explore a cave I found in the woods. And so I got into the woodsmanship that he passed away when I was 12 and Eric was 6. So I probably got Eric a little bit into the air guns and bows that I was shooting there. We both went to boarding school at a place in sort of, eastern central Pennsylvania.
Because did you guys grow up in Connecticut or New York?
We grew up went to school in New York City initially, had a weekend place in Greenwich, Connecticut on the water. So I sort of grew up, fishing
so
that.
a lot of the wealthy people in New York. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I went to boarding school in central Pennsylvania in 8th grade.
It's central.
So
that's a difference.
Yeah, it was. But
Pennsylvania.
there was a guy there that was sort of into fly fishing, and he taught me the basics of a fly cast. You know what I mean? And then when I say basics, it was here's a quick. I reeled in for the first 2 years of 3 years of my fly fishing career because I didn't know any better, and there wasn't the internet to try to read or see it, and there wasn't YouTube, and there was a rifle range on campus. It was a big feeder school to the Naval Academy and to West Point. If you wanted to go there, you sort of you went to that school to kind of get you ready for it. So. Rifle range on campus, trap and skeet just off, and there was a guy there that was one of these old school, he was actually the dean of students there, a guy named Gordon McAlpin, phenomenal. He could just clean a round of skeet with a 410 pump, an old Winchester 42, just a badass old school outdoorsman. And he saw I had a passion and sort of a talent, and he got me into it. Just sort of.
And so you bonded with him. He was into it. And
He's the guy that first took me hunting.
It happened with my son at boarding school, but not for that stuff. But his shop teacher in boarding school was really great with the boys and would teach them adventure because, he went to kind of a rich kid boarding school too. And so it's a lot of kids that had never even been outdoors. So he would take them in Vermont to the local bridge to jump off into the water.
Exactly.
The school's doing
I did all that shit, rock jumping.
He taught, and so my son really kind of adored the guy because he's man's man there and teach him stuff. He's taught my son woodworking and all this great stuff that these skills my son will have forever. And he loves this stuff still just because, he admired this guy and this guy took the time to really love and teach the kids these cool things.
Well, that's what you sort of needed the mentor. My grandfather sort of lit the flame, and this guy sort of took it to the next level. And then the second I could drive, I was like, dude, I took, every summer I literally would drive out west and just go fish the streams out west, sleep in my truck, or hike in somewhere, sleep somewhere in a high mountain lake, fish, catch my own food, come back out, hitchhike back to my car. I lived that sort of adventure lifestyle and just tried to do it every way, shape, and form, and it just sort of became part of my. That's what I do. So in my free time,
if you're into it, you can't. There's no one that goes and hunts every year that doesn't. That they don't have it inside of them, and it's not a passion. It's because it's just. I think if you don't have that passion, it's such a nuisance to go and hunt and stuff.
Oh, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah. No, it sucks. If you're. That's what I was saying with my kids. It's you got to want to do it. And so I'm psyched that two of my boys already showing a lot of interest. The other one actually, it's sort of interesting. He sort of even does I don't know, I don't want to shoot an animal. But then I've taken him spearfishing. There's a lionfish there. He's he comes up and he's rah! He gets it. I'm oh, dude, he has it. He just doesn't know it yet.
Maybe his is for the ocean.
His is going to but develop a little different.
All three of my kids went through that period where, I don't want to shoot anything. Whether it's school or just an age thing or whatever. But they all came out of it. And they understand because they'll ask me questions. I don't force it on them. I don't care. I want them to be educated on it, but I don't care if you go and participate. But understanding, conservation.
Yeah, my daughters aren't into it. My oldest daughter, she's a phenomenal athlete. Incredibly coordinated.
The golfer.
Yeah. Just I can't beat her in basketball. She's from 13 years old. She's just in a freak in terms of coordination. She can outshoot most boys, and she goes she does it once a year. She'll have hey, I kind of want to do this today, and it's the one day I get her that year. And it's so impressive how good she is, but basically no real interest. But she understands the safety side, would never do the hunting thing. It's just not for her. My other son, that's all he wants to do. But it's interesting also, though, you see, having now gotten out of New York City, it's a lot easier. Because I had my daughter, when she was a kid, like she'd be like my bird dog on the weekend. We go hunt like, some public land pheasant somewhere in New York, and I get and she comes back and like all proud and like it's like a retriever. But then she mentioned it one time in school. And the teacher was like, animals have families.
They
and
shame them.
They do that. Like, and I mean, the kid was basically like, wouldn't eat meat for 2 years, would never got back in the hunt. Like, I'm like, what do you, like, you shamed a 5-year-old kid into like submission with your bullshit agenda? Like, so it was sort of interesting. I saw the same thing happening even to my older son, who's the guy that's been like
Donnie.
literally all over the world with me. And I just, great shooter, just, as competent an outdoorsman as it gets in a 13-year-old package. And like, it happened to him. Then he got down to Florida, and we wasn't getting indoctrinated, and all his friends are doing it on the weekends. And he was like, "When are we going hunting?" I'm like, "What, motherfucker? You just told me like you didn't want to do this stuff. Like, what are you talking about?" So, so much of it's the environment you put in.
Well, I was going to ask you, how's it been? Well, not only for you, but your family. You guys all moved to Florida, correct?
Dude, it's so much better. Like
So you would go out in New York, and they're like, "Hey, fuck you, Don."
Not really, honestly.
No?
The reality is I got a lot more positive than negative, but the positive was like, tuck your like thumbs up under your jacket so no one else sees it. And it was like, they sort of love it, but they're afraid to acknowledge it. Most people don't have the balls to actually come up and say something. Every once in a while you get some guy like, come up with something stupid that's like, he sat there thinking about it for 20 minutes and you put him in his place and they're like, but my problem is I'm just too, like, I'm going to avoid putting myself in a situation because I know how sort of, whether it's verbally or otherwise, you back me in a corner, I'm going to kind of push back. And like, I don't want to have to think about that.
Well, you never know when it's like
when I went down to Florida,
crazy that's going to hurt
or some
you
crazy
or
or whatever it is. It's like, and I was licensed to carry and all that stuff, but I was like, I don't want to get like, I don't want to have to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I went down to Florida and I'm still in South Florida, right? So like, I was hoping for like even 60-40 the other way because, I live in a pretty wealthy area. What I was probably a lot of, dude, like I've been there 2 years.
2 years.
I'm not sure I've like paid for my own dinner yet. It's that like, you know what I mean? It's so, and it's not
another
just
one
like
where you're getting it back now because you guys had to suffer.
It's like one of those like people they're just outward and I'm sure there's plenty of people on the other side as well, but like you realize like even like a Florida, like we did better than whatever they're saying you did because like I could be at a gas station filling up in the middle of bum hell because I get out in the outdoors in the swamps every weekend and hunting and fishing and shooting whatever it is and like like guys that are like a greens crew somewhere, you know what I mean, like. Hispanic. Hey, it's Trump Jr. We love you, man. Come in. Like, it was funny. I was with Eric, last week, and we had to go down to Doral down in Miami, and I was like, I had a long drive before. I was like, we got to go fill up, go to a gas station. There was literally just a Muslim American guy there, and he goes, "Oh my God, would you sign my hat, dude?" He had a "Make America Great Again" hat, working at a gas station.
How great is that?
Every stereotype. And you're like that guy wouldn't.
People that have suffered, like I got a friend here in New Hampshire that's a Russian kid.
Yeah.
That his parents came here and everything, and but after he was born, when he was like 17, I think, and he came here to play hockey in college and stuff. And he loves America and is so conservative because his family's so like. Persecuted and like Russia, there's no opportunity and it sucks.
And in Florida, you have Venezuela and Cuba. Like they escaped that shit. They don't want to bring it here. And
so they're excited. I mean, it is interesting how you see that, but America, it's like half of us feel bad for being fortunate. Like,
so it was like it broke every stereotype, and it was like,
awesome.
man, like so for me, like I initially went down. I was like, I want to get away from the bullshit, and like the tax code doesn't hurt either, right? Like,
and it's not getting any better.
I'm living in a badass home. Basically for free relative to what I was giving New York for taxes to
New York
pay for
or
some
California,
trans program that like I'm not really into. Like if someone's 25 and they want to do that, I don't give a shit. Like you start pushing it on 3-year-olds in school, I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't care what any adult wants to do.
But like if you reverse the tax code now, I wouldn't leave. Like it's that good.
Really?
Oh yeah. If you like, so it started off
pretty great.
At least partially financially, partially just like I didn't know if I'd like Florida like full time, and like. I'd never I'm not going anywhere.
As much as you're going to travel, probably the rest of your life, you only have to be okay.
Maybe the only thing I miss is like coming out, just that cool air with without 200% humidity, on a crisp day. Like I love that about sort of New England.
Yeah, I do love New England.
This next 2 weeks
with the windows open.
The next 2 weeks with the leaves. But like the rest of it, like it's good. I'll come and visit when I need to. And I kept my cabin in the only thing I kept in New York was my cabin in the Catskills because I'll never,
because I'm going to get a place either, around San Antonio or a place in South Florida for the winter because winter's hard here. Like we're north.
But like you want to be on the water. Like Florida's going to be a much better. A, it's easier to get to for you. B,
that's true.
B, like the water options are pretty incredible. If you're getting into spearfishing and diving and like, there's so much to do. Like,
do we have the guys got a place down there for shooting pigs? Do we have a big place?
I got plenty.
I was going to say, if not, we need to get everybody together and go.
Well, and we do the deer hunt on airboats, and like, I mean, there's some fun. You know,
all right. I'm sold with that one. I was just going to say we need to get
the gator hunts are
the 5 or 6 of us together and get like a place in Middle Florida where there's nothing but pigs. And
well, by the way, I totally do that too. Just buy some more. Like I have some, I have a little place, up in Okeechobee and stuff like that where I go where I can shoot a lot.
Yeah, really get it set up with like a farm hand that'll keep them fed and around, and we put up.
I do that. Like I actually have like 3 or 4 farms like that around the country where it's like I'm in with like 5 friends that are partners. I'm like, I'll pay my, my share. I'll probably use it very seldom. It's sort of a land play for me. The only thing, like, I have some friends that, like, they love to get on a tractor and go work all week. I was like, I'm not doing that because I want to go shooting on the weekends. Like, I work too hard.
Oh, you're going to have...
I did that in high school, and I worked landscaping jobs for 7 years growing up. Like, I'm good with that.
Also, different responsibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, I
so
know.
my deal is I'll pay for whatever, but I ain't, like, I don't expect me to show up and do the work days.
Yeah, I mean, the campaigning stuff just when it was your father. I mean, your schedule is so...
Oh, yeah. Like, for perspective, like, October of 2020, I did 104 rallies myself. October of 2020, like 4 a day, like and that's like 300 to 3,000 people.
Tougher
like,
than the sheep hunting.
Oh, dude, like because when I public speak, I'm blessed. Like I'm, contrary to the media, I think I'm pretty decent at it. Like I don't need notes. I don't actually have to prep for it. But like to get from the audience, you got to give. Like you do music and stuff, right? Like,
so
you know what you have to put into it. It's the same thing with speaking. Like to get from the audience, you can't just go in there and sort of.
I mean, just when we do like an event, like we did an event, so we have this thing called Love for the Streets for our company, our gun company Q, and it's like we'll go to gun stores, and social media is helping that too, because I'm the only real CO probably in our industry that puts myself out there. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks, And we just did one in Atlanta, but that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And like I signed probably 50 autographs before I got in the building.
Yeah.
And so then it's all day I'm there talking to people nonstop. That is the most exhausting thing I do. That's more exhausting than any hunt I do.
Well, you've been with me at some of the shows.
Yeah.
Like it actually gets to the point like, and I know so many people in the industry because like
cool.
contrary to like the internet where like Don Jr. doesn't know shit about shooting. It's like, they get like 7 like national champions in different disciplines. Be like, yeah, you don't want to play that game with Don. Like he's fairly.
No, it is interesting.
Fairly, but everyone's an internet badass. You deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
People don't understand probably fully. How much of a student of the history and of all of the stuff that you actually are. You're not just a manufacturer. Like you're full fucking nerd. Like and I'm kind of the same way with long range. And I'll post a picture. They're like, you don't know what you can only shoot with a guide. I'm like I don't even know that's a thing. But like then the guys that are like world like PRS guys or guys that have won Camp Perry. But like no, you don't do that.
Well,
but,
I mean,
and then they're talking shit to these like world class like shooters. It's pretty funny.
But just personality wise, knowing you, it's when you're at that level, and like I hunt a lot, like I'm probably the only guy. Well, you hunt more than me probably, but probably not by much.
Well, I don't get to take I'm like I can't do a month in Africa, but like I put myself out there to do a couple extreme hunts. I was in Mongolia for all 10
of
days
your time you're not working. So like even within our group of friends, I probably hunt the most other than you maybe. And I mean, when you spend a lot of time hunting or shooting, like personality-wise, when you meet someone. It's you can't fake the shooting or the hunting stuff.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I'm not into the sheep hunting yet, and I'm not sure I'll ever get there. Because, it's just next level shit.
Yeah. For the most part, it was interesting. In 16, I think it was like 15 or 16, I think it was, primaries in 16. I went to like Elko County, Nevada, like coal, like mining country, Nevada, like... And I guess one of the guys from like the circus, I think it was Mark McKinnon. He was like a Bush advisor, and he, some guy in the audience started with that, and it was like, "Well, you say you know about shooting." Started asking me about, and like I was like, all right, "So ask me anything." Like he literally asked me for like a load formula for like a 308, and I was like, X grains of VAR. I don't want to say because someone will say that's a hand grenade, And like Mark McKinnon goes, that was the most impressive thing I've ever seen in politics. Like this guy tried to own him with something so obsure,
I know.
And like he was running circles around the guy that considered himself an expert. And he goes,
I couldn't say that right now about a load that I have. I would have to go look. I have my data sheet. I wouldn't even know.
So from that point on, they stopped really questioning it. It was one other time it happened. I got sort of one of the other cool compliments of my life. I was out shooting. It was actually an event for now Governor Gianforte, I think it was, in Montana. And so they're like, hey, they're doing a donor event. We're going to do a long-range class. And there was a bunch of Force Recon guys. I think Rob O'Neill was there. And, SEAL Sniper. And obviously the guy killed Bin Laden. He's a buddy. And, so we were shooting. And I got behind a Chi-Tac. And, I had their dope. And I was like, I hit the, 18-inch gong at a mile, first shot. And they're like, oh, my God. And, there was one of the Force Recon snipers was off to the side shooting offhand. I was like, let's see what you got. And so they had an 18-inch gong at 1,200. And I went 3 for 5 offhand with a 6.5 Creedmoor in 14-mile-an-hour wind. And so all of the snipers were like, oh, my God. And everyone else was like, dude, you hit a mile there. I go, you don't, they didn't even understand that 1,200 offhand with a little gun is it's not even.
I mean, that's better shooting than.
Yeah, there was an
90% of the snipers.
There was an element of luck, perhaps, but I used to shoot a lot of competitive high power, so I'm pretty comfortable offhand, and it's a big. But so later
you shot
on
in college,
not in college, but I shot afterwards. I shot, with Dennis DeMille and Carl Bernowski, guys that have won Camp Perry. I shot in teams with them. Really, I sort of got into that. I called, what was then Creedmoor Sports, and he was running it. He was like, well, if you ever want to learn to shoot, call me. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? I was always pretty good, and from porting school and all that stuff. Then I looked him up. I was like, oh, he won Camp Perry 4 times. I was like, so literally, I was like, hey, when are we shooting? He goes, there's a match at, Camp Pendleton in 2 weeks. I was 2 weeks later, I was in California from New York, shooting a match with him. And
cool. That's how you learn.
It was good. I put myself out there.
It is interesting, that you have access. That's one good thing about your position.
Yeah, it opens the door a lot like that. But then you have
your dad's son. Yeah, you can get the connections.
That's how we started talking in a certain way. There's way to what's going on here.
But if you're not legit or you won't put in the work, nobody gives a shit.
Correct. Yeah, so that's how that started. But yeah, the end of the Montana event, I think it was GQ magazine or one of these highfalutin. So they come up to Rob O'Neill and be like, well, Don Jr. he talks about this stuff, but he's just like, stop. What do you mean? It's I know what you want me to try to say, and you don't want to play that game. He's like, that kid's forgotten more about this shit than I'll know when I was a SEAL sniper. It was a real cool compliment that he didn't need to do, but they were looking to try to knock me.
Well, I think too. I would have thought before I met you, you would just be like a New York dick, is what I would have thought. And then we culled deer in Texas, and then there's pictures you were like, hey, don't post those if you don't mind, because you were covered in blood with these. I remember you had on tan pants. I have the pictures, and you're covered in blood because we were culling does, and then you've got to gut them, you got to drag them back to the truck, and it's not like we're sitting in a high rack and culling them and then having other people go and get them.
Yeah, there's a lot of Texas hunters that have killed a lot of deer and not gutted a single one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so it's interesting in that regard. And so for me, I was like, oh yeah, I was wrong.
The reason I don't want the pictures posted is more because I know what they'll do with it.
Yeah, sure.
I have no problem. I want people to know I'm doing that shit myself, but I also don't want to be like,
oh, you know how
I sort of have to be the face of hunting.
It will be taken out of context.
I could never go kill a polar bear. You know what I mean? And complete my North America slam.
Oh, we got to go get a narwhal.
Someone will say, oh my God, it's in despite that there's probably, there's plenty of people that would argue there's more now and the yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter. I just got to try to represent hunting in a way that I just got to, there's plenty of stuff that I hunt that no one's ever going to see.
I think it is. You get advantages from your position, but then there's also the burden of you're the focal point.
You got to think about those things. So someone else can post a picture with a cat, and it doesn't matter. Me, if I go mountain lion out west, oh my God.
Yeah,
no one will see the picture of my leopard because it's just not worth the headache,
Yeah, you could. I mean, basically, I'm going to anoint myself as the person who can make these decisions for you. You can only post pictures of ugly animals because that's okay if you shoot an ugly animal.
Yeah, the basic rules are no elephant, no pachyderms, no bears, and no cats. Those are the big ones. I'm sure, even the wolf, which is the dumbest thing in the world, but even that seems to be a sensitive one.
Yeah. Oh, people did fall in love with wolves. I think it must be that Yellowstone special about reintroducing them and people.
Yeah, has anyone's ever seen wolves hunt in the wild and kill for fun and stuff like that?
A pack of dogs would be the worst thing,
dude. If you're an elk or a sheep getting decimated out west by a wolf pack that didn't exist there before and a different species, it sucks.
Yeah, people should go and watch some of those videos. Packs of dogs are so efficient,
and they do it.
African
and they do it for
wild
fun.
dogs, because you can't shoot those either in Africa. And oh my Lord, are they efficient?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite handgun? To carry, or can you say? because I don't know, Field Ethos, you guys might be sponsored.
No, listen, that's not. I think what works with Field Ethos, you've even seen it. Some of like we may be sponsored by someone, but we'll give them a bad review if it's a bad product. That's sort of
Which I love that. That's a family attitude. If you should hold your bros accountable,
and it doesn't mean I don't love them. And like, dude, like just do better. Like it's not
hard to hit a home run every time.
Exactly, and like so. I mean, I got into Jason and I. We started Field Ethos. It started off with basically a text thread.
I guess we should ask that. Field Ethos. What is it and how did it start?
Well, it started. It's basically an outdoor adventure lifestyle brand. I mean, it probably started a little heavy on the hunting side, but like we realized, like the other things we're talking about, like spearfishing doesn't necessarily fit in that, but like it's an adventure and diving and overlanding and like whatever it may be. But I was watching, the hunting industry. I'm like, and I've been seeing the same article regurgitated 1,000 times. Like the writing's no good anymore. Everyone's taking a slant, but now more importantly, I've seen like hunting has gone like PC. We saved the
it doesn't translate anymore.
We've saved the elk's asshole to make a elk asshole gnocchi. Like I'm like, no, the hoof.
That's what you're having for dinner too.
Yeah, the hoof. We're going to carve chess pieces out of it to make sure
we have to justify everything.
I'm like, stop. Like that's not why I hunt. By the way, everything gets used. But like everyone was so justifying this, and they're funded half the time by like anti-2A guys and all this. And so it started off. It was basically a text letter. It's like me, Jason Vincent, another buddy that's a former SEAL sniper, and like we were sitting there like talking shit about like the guys that are the leaders in hunting. I'm like, dude, like I've killed more shit in the last 3 weekends than those guys have in a year. Like but they understand the virtues of a fine IPA and mustache wax. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I know with my hunting, like I consider myself so novice, and because I didn't grow up with it and I didn't really find it until my early 30s. But in the last year, I've killed 200 animals in Africa. 200 200 hunts, 200 animals. And, a lot of mine's testing ammo and stuff, but it's there. You can't fake it. There's only one way to get experience with animals, and it's going and doing it.
Yeah. And so for me, like, I was like, I've literally done the hardest hunts in the world. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? I've and been successful and turned, at 14,000 feet and, Mongolian horseback and old Russian cars. And then, half dozen sheep hunts in the Yukon.
It's dangerous as hell.
So, I'm pretty well versed, and I was like, dude, no one's speaking to me anymore. I've been in every, not every camp in the world, but like at least a representation of every camp in the world. And it's like the people who are representing hunting, like they're not speaking to me or anyone else I've shared a camp with.
No, it's TV shows, sponsors. Yeah. These are the folks.
And so I just said we want to do something different. Like we're not going to take a sponsorship from something we wouldn't use. We will call it out if
when I met Jason. That's the first thing he said to me. Like when he was kind of laying it out for me, it was like, this is one of the basic foundations of this company. We're not going to do this.
Yeah. And, that'd be really easy. I can call them up and say, hey, I'll put up a couple pictures of your guns, send us money. Like, I don't want to, like, that's not what it is. I want to bring back the humor, the campfire, the unapologetic sort of not PC bullshit that actually happens in hunting camp, but that no one's representing anymore. And so,
because hunting camp and, the campfire part is still probably the best thing.
Dude, to me, that's 90% of it at this point. Like, I've done my fair share of killing. It's like, don't get me wrong. I love the rush. I love the setup. I love the work to get there. And I mean, but I'm just as passionate about when I was, cutting my own lanes for, archery, whitetail in New York, where I know if I shoot a 120, it's going to be a massive accomplishment. Yeah. And everything's relative, right? But everything became about inches and, I couldn't have done it if it wasn't for the XP 12,000 at 4. I'm like, dude, you shot a doe at 7 yards. Like, what are you talking? Like, really? Like, I got to, like, the 22 mag would be very effective. And, everything became about selling something. And I get it, dude. I'm a business guy. I'm a marketing guy. I understand that. But, we lost track of what it really means. And for that next generation, for even the people that are involved in it now, they're like, there's no outlet. And I was like, it's sort of amazing just the people that have been like, dude, just random people all over the country. Dude, I love what you're doing with Field Ethos.
Man, I think it just creates such a community and a camaraderie. Like, our lives have gotten so busy, and you're probably like a prime example of that, to where you go on a hunt, like me and Jason Vincent and some of the bros went to Argentina recently. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy or two that doesn't normally go with us, and now we're connected for life.
Yeah.
And some of it isn't just the hunt, but it's like hanging out at night, but also, you think of the things we did. When Jason decided to take that single action 44 off the gaucho and stalk a feral goat and shoot it at 63 yards, that was the most Field Ethos thing Field Ethos has done.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photography from that. I'm like, why are they walking across a stand flat with a domestic turkey? I'm like, okay, but that's the point. I guess it's also about having fun.
Yeah,
like we've taken it so serious because we're so worried that someone who hates, like someone who will never understand hunting, no matter what you can tell them everything about conservation, about the science, like it doesn't matter.
You got to go experience. Like, you make a connection to where any of those guys.
But we're worried about that person instead of actually bringing in the next generation. And this was about bringing in the next generation, bringing back the humor, bringing back the wit, bringing back the shit that was hunting for the last millennia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, it was just sort of a natural, I was like, yeah, I'm sort of unapologetic. I say the shit that everyone's probably thinking. I just have the balls to say it. And like, we're like, let's do something with it. So it started off as an online presence, and then we had a couple cool guys. Like you've seen the journals already for the print stuff. And it's like, most of that is guys that are not professional writers. They're like, hey man, I want to know if you'd like, one guy's like F-18 pilot that came back from Afghanistan. He got into fly fishing, and he's telling the story about how that was like his decompression coming out of war. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's interesting. And then also like articles from someone who's admittedly novice.
Yeah.
Because it's okay. I love hunting. I want to go do these things. And just the arrogance and attitude of a lot of guys that have been there and done it for 20 years.
Well, that's what it was really cool. We had a couple of those guys that have been there out there for 40 years as, Weatherby Award winners. But like, you see some of their writing in the conventional magazines. It was like, write us your most self-deprecating story. No, give us your and it's like amazing because like this guy that won the Weatherby Award and has been everywhere. Like, dude, he got altitude sickness and he's throwing up all camp and like that's what you want to see because that's the real shit. Like everyone thinks that like you're not always a badass all the time. Show that other side of it, and it was so cool. And like guys that have sort of been, let's call it like broken by the industry, and they're sort of used to cranking it. They're like, dude, it was so refreshing to do that because I know I have to do an article for it's exactly this many words, and I got to pitch the product 12 times, and he's like, you gave us no parameters and just told us to have fun and like be a little embarrassed when and he's like, it was the most fun I've had writing in 25 years, and like that's what we want. Like it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be work. It's not always a sales pitch.
No, I think
so. In that vein, like go check out Field Ethos.
Yeah, Field Ethos. Because I tell you, I go on hunts with Field Ethos a few times a year, I guess now with Jason. But if you can get into hunting, and if you're into guns and you like shooting, you like adventure, it doesn't matter. It could be into cars, motorcycles, whatever. Go try hunting with some guys. And what I realize now is if we go as a group, if 6 guys go as a group, you might not know half of them. Yeah. And if you make that an annual thing or a semi-annual thing, you will be connected to these guys. You will have
like
friends,
no other
people you can rely on if you need something. It's just, and it makes it so much better. Because I personally don't mind hunting by myself. And I do that a fair amount, even in Africa.
Well, I'm basically a recluse. You know what I mean? Like people are like, what do you mean? It's like, you can give me a mic and I'll entertain 1,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever. It doesn't. But like my happy place is usually actually by myself. But like, but that group is also, it's a fun crowd to hang out with.
Yeah, when you share something like that, and I don't know what it is. It's like the adventure and then the adrenaline. When you share that with another group of guys, and it's just you get connected in a different way, and you have friends for ever doing that stuff. So that's an interesting part of hunting. What? How much time we got? What time is it?
It is 3:15.
Okay. It's 6:40. I need to leave here at 4:00. I do not want to miss that. Oh,
where are you going?
See a girl.
Oh, nice.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah.
Wow. it's commitment
for a day and coming.
Wow,
back.
I'm
going to see.
Maybe you're not actually 48. That's like something I would have done at 16, where it's like, well, she's 9 hours away by car. It's like, oh yeah, let's go. Like let's just drive. Well, I'm doing a 9-hour drive today. So
21 hours by car, so I'll be taking the plane.
Yeah.
But no, I'm I don't know. It's kind of like hunting. I don't know. Maybe this part of my life is the same way. It's like, yeah, she's cool, and I'm taking her to see Top Gun and to eat. And
by the way, Top Gun was great.
I know. So we're both stoked on it. So that's what I'm going to do.
Like that was probably the movie.
I'm going to a 10 o'clock Top Gun at the theater.
It was so nice to see a sequel that wasn't so
terrible.
Fucking terrible. Yeah, well, because like that was the movie. Like there was a time where I've seen Top Gun more than any other movie by far. I could put it on mute and just give you the whole. Dude, when I was like 10 or whatever when that came out. Like, it was the movie of my childhood, you know?
Yeah.
And so when you see all the other sequels now and everything's gotten so fucking woke, and, you need the trans Native American at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe they were there, but probably not. Like, but you're forcing the shit out. So I was going there being like, how much of that, you didn't have, at least not what you have in typical Hollywood now, where they're just like forcing all this crap down your throat. Like,
and Tom Cruise seems so crazy, and in some ways I'm like, man, I'm not sure I even want to support him. But like, whatever, just remove yourself from that. It's like Tom Cruise may be a crazy idiot, but he has given us so much entertainment. So like the willing suspension of disbelief, I don't care about his personal life. Like as an actor, like the movies and stuff that he's given us.
And like to be like, imagine how many people in Hollywood would be afraid to do a patriotic movie because what if that like, I'm like, dude, if you're willing to, and now listen, plenty of these guys will do whatever it is for cash, right? But like, these days that'll get you canceled.
No one is. I have not had one person tell me that the new Top Gun isn't awesome. Not one.
Yeah, it's great. I really liked it. So.
Another sequel that I like, Thomas, is one that I think might be as good or better than the original. Family Feud with Steve Harvey. He's fucking hilarious. Like I'm so into like Steve Harvey Family Feud.
I don't watch a lot of daytime TV, but
but it started popping up on my YouTube, and I started watching a bunch of comedy shows.
Some of the outtake clips are pretty good because he's like,
he's the best
so
thing.
Great.
He's the best thing that ever happened to Family Feud.
Well, I love the original, and that guy was kind of funny too. I don't even remember his name, but he's like an old kind of curmudgeon-y white dude, and he was funny in his own way, like Archie Bunker kind of stuff. But Steve Harvey, but also I think like me being from the South and like Steve Harvey, I think is from Mississippi. I don't know. He's from the South somewhere. Like I relate in that like Southern way that he's funny, and he's fucking hilarious on that show.
There's definitely a disproportionate amount of outtakes from that show that I see like popping up like viral Instagram shit. I'm like, that's doing a good job. Yeah.
It's good. But what were you going to say a second ago? You were all hovering over that mic. Were you going to sing to us? Don, you ever heard Thomas's band?
I have.
He has the voice of an angel.
Wow.
We should play it.
No. You always do this. I actually even told my boys at the studio the other day that you were going to do this.
Oh, we should do it.
No, please.
Oh, my phone is in there.
No, because we have to wrap this up. We got to go.
You got to chill. We don't have to go. Why are you freaking out? You got a date?
Kinda.
Yeah. Okay. Well, settle.
So when do I get to play with an 8.6? It's the one thing I haven't played with.
Well, we should go to Africa. Oh, I'll send it to you. Well, you ought to be shooting this moose with it. Really? What are you shooting the moose with?
300 PRC.
Jesus, how far are you shooting?
You know what? That's the thing. Well, I wanted to actually bring a lever gun. The problem is they're saying there's a couple areas that we're going to be hunting there. You could be like cut clearings. And he's like, you could shoot 400 or 500 yards. And it's like, I have the capability of making that shot. So it's like, if I can only bring one gun, what I really wanted to do.
Tracking sucks.
Yeah. What I really wanted to do was bring, like one of my Freedom Arms or BFRs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like a 454 Casull.
Yeah, you're probably shooting
I do a lot of hunting.
Since you brought the 300
but I was like, you know what? I'm driving through Massachusetts. Like, I don't want to deal with like, if I get pulled over, like dealing with the bullshit. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bring one rifle and call it a day. But... Well, the 8.6 in a backpack with that folding stock. I got one of those Eberly stock packs with the little, sleeve. Yeah. I could throw that in there.
Let's give him one.
I know. On. Okay, so I'll make that happen this week. But I just shot a Cape Buffalo with subsonic with the 1-in-3 twist in Africa.
Yeah. I want to hit like I love where that's going with the fast twist stuff. Do you know Mike Bush? Like from like Voodoo, like the guy pioneered.
He does
like
the Voodoo 22.
The Voodoo 22.
Nice.
Like so,
I don't know him.
And he's starting to play with like the fast twist in the 22, and he's saying like. Because the problem I had with 22, and I've been doing like, I'm the dude that's been putting like old like small bore 40Xs in like a Macmillan A5 for 15 years. Like before it was cool, but like it was always single feed and a pain in the ass. So like but like I was shooting like long range 22 for a long time, and now
it's hard
with those. But the hardest thing was like you can't load out the ES. Yeah. Right. You got to play with lots of ammo, and that's not worth it. But like what he was saying with the fast twist stuff, he was also getting a lot less vertical out of the same ammunition.
Yeah, your BC is
like a gyro just holding it there.
It's increasing. Your BC is increasing. Like Brian Litz, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course.
So when we started, I was the first person to shoot long range with the 8.6. So I've shot.
What is BC?
Ballistic coefficient.
So it's at 1,000 yards. I shot probably 500 rounds in 2 days of subsonic 8.6 at 1,000. And but I shot supersonic as well. But what we realize is that like 400 meters with the supersonic, like the lits, it just can't calculate. So they're doing all this stuff now with they got a 2,000 yard range
because of the transition.
Well, no,
was that was screwing it up? Meaning
No,
it was subsonic, but subsonic stayed consistent.
It was subsonic, but supersonic at 400 meters, like his app was off by like 1.5 mils.
Wow.
You just don't get the drop because of the fast twist at the same rate because your BC is increasing, and so like you can calculate.
But you're putting the twist in his case in applied ballistics, you're putting the twist in. So, but was it twist so much that it didn't actually?
Yeah, because they
couldn't compute it because they never went down to 3.
When they've never done it.
Yeah.
So it does go down to 3, but they've never actually done it. So It was theoretical. So now they're testing it. And so, it's going to improve the app as well. But, nobody's shooting fast twists. So what's it matter? So it was all theoretical, but they didn't.
I'd say most people that are shooting 7 and 7.5 inch twists would be considered fast twists these days, but not.
Because we're
3
testing,
is a whole different.
We're testing 1-in-1. We're doing cool stuff. Like the 1-in-1 will require, its own projectile.
Yeah.
And it will probably be with supersonic only 100 meters to 200 meters because of the spin drift. Mm-hmm. But the energy, because we can make it go supersonic.
Well, that's what I want to learn. Is sort of the energy on impact. Because again, I don't need to hit something at 3,000 feet per second. If it's doing something different on impact, you can do something.
So think you've got a 300 PRC. Well, the great thing about it is, lots of energy on target, and you can shoot far. Yeah. But most likely, you're going to shoot this thing close. So what if with a 10-inch barrel, you could put like magnum energy on target? Yeah. And so when you start calculating the fast twist, and you can see it.
So why is the twist adding, let's call it kinetic energy, or what? I don't know what.
Well, energy on target. It's because it's velocity. So you have to stop something. I mean, the simple way to think about it is like your blender having 3 speeds, but you have to stop something. If you shoot an animal, delivering the energy, the best case scenario is you shoot it and the bullet falls out of the side. That's the best case because all the energy
sticks in the skin.
So, but you have to stop a bullet from going in a linear fashion, or you have to stop the linear velocity, but you also have to stop the bullet from rotating. So if you're capped with linear velocity, you're not capped with rotational velocity. And with a small diameter bullet, it doesn't,
But is it 1-to-1? Like, meaning, is the rotational velocity not going to be the same? So
it's not 1-to-1.
But I guess you're increasing it so much.
Yeah, because we're going from 50,000 to 500,000 or 50,000 to 1,000,000.
So are you is that all then lathe turned solids?
Well, right now, the reason we stopped at 1 and 3, we started doing fast twists because of subsonic. We did 300 Blackout because the long heavy bullets, you got to spin them faster to get any kind of dispersion, get good accuracy. And so what we started realizing was, holy shit, the gel test with the supersonic. And we stopped at 1 and 3 because you can use solid coppers that exist now or bonded bullets that exist now in 338.
So a bonded, it won't spin that apart? I figured there was a limit to...
No, we haven't tested a bonded that'll come apart, but a non-bonded, like the cheap bullets, you can get them to come apart. But if we go down to 1 and 2, they come up, like this most of the solid coppers, and it'll open out.
From 1 to 3 to 1 to 2, what's the difference in RPM?
Oh, Jesus. Well, 50%.
Is it 1 to... No, but it
depends.
Does it generate...
It depends if it's super or subsonic, but it's, when you get down there in that region, it'll go from 400,000 to like 1,000,000 at one and one if we're shooting supersonic out of a 16-inch barrel. So it's barrel length dependent and super subsonic dependent, but in the bigger the bullet, the better fast twist is. So what? Since I love Africa, I can't wait. So now that we've got a few shops that are doing fast twists and we're setting up our own barrel cell, because there's most conventional rifling machines, that are pulling buttons stuff. They can only go to like 1 6 3/4, and that then they're tapped out. So there's not very many places that can do super fast twist, but when we start talking about 375 or 458, like 458 watt for Africa, do that. So we can have a fast twist, and the fast twist when the bullet diameter is bigger matters more, and so we could have a 14-inch, 458 lot which is very common in Africa for like a PH's backup for dangerous game. So instead of a 24-inch barrel, they can have a 14-inch barrel or a 12-inch barrel with a silencer, and they're getting the same or more energy on target.
The only thing I don't like about the sight plan is so short, but then you can shoot a red dot too, because at that point you're not exactly going purist, so fuck it.
Well, dangerous. Yeah, you're right.
No, like sight plan and that would make a big difference.
It's funny you said that, because when we did this, so I was very nervous shooting because with supersonic doing the gel test. So when we went down from 1 in 10 for 338, so that's an 8.6 bullet, down to 1 in 7, which that's a huge increase.
Yeah.
And we shot that gel. Then we went to 1 in 3. And so we've published, and maybe you've seen it, like the video on top of each other of the 1 in 7 with a 210 Barnes TSX, which is a phenomenal bullet. Mm-hmm. And then the 1 in 3, the initial wound cavity that you can measure in the gel test is 3 times bigger. So,
wow.
Yeah. But with subsonic, when you don't get the linear velocity, the gel test doesn't look as impressive. So it's like hard to know. So we started shooting gel and doing high speed with it with the supersonic. I killed 4 buffalo with 16 to 10 inch barrels with supersonic with a 210 Barnes TSX. Wow. And it's phenomenal. It is an incredible load. I will kill anything in the world with that. But when we did subsonic, I was nervous. And the Hornady 315 grain sub X bullet. Mm-hmm. So it's a lead core, a real thin copper jacket that still stays together out of a 1 in 3 out of the muzzle. I get great accuracy out of it. And I wanted to shoot the buffalo, the first one, broadside. And so we found one after a few days of hunting, like a lone bull, because I wanted to get so close that, it's difficult, even in their bachelor group of 5 or 6, when they have 12 eyes instead of 2. Anyway, so we find them, and I made 3 stalks on him over the course of some time to where I got 30 yards, but he'd bust us. He's just old and smart, and he would bust us and look at me. And so I didn't want to shoot him in the chest because I never shot, what do you know? And it's dangerous. Like shooting a buffalo is dangerous. And so, but finally at 51 yards, he was sleeping, and that's as close as we could get because of the terrain. And so we're on him for a couple hours, and he woke up, and instantly I felt the wind hit the back of my neck, and he woke up instantly and stood up and looked right at us. He was a slight 2.25, and I shot him on the front shoulder at 51 yards, but I'd changed my 1 in 8 Swarovski out for an aim point, and I mounted it forward. Mm-hmm. So like kind of, it was a micro aim point.
Great.
And, it's like, what do you call that? Like a scout position, like forward. Yeah. Because I figured it would be very close, and I wanted both eyes open all the time, full field of view, so I could know where, if Thomas was up a tree or I needed to run.
Dude, it's pretty. We went down to aim point last year in Sweden, and we did that.
Oh, the pigs.
They actually put tape, like electrical tape, over the front of the aim point.
Oh, so you had to shoot both eyes open.
So you had to shoot both eyes open. It was sort of amazing. It was a really cool course to sort of get comfortable. Now, again, I do so much shotgun shooting that I don't have a problem doing it. At that point. But it was actually sort of cool being like, wait a minute, the optic's actually covered, but the dot's still there, and with both eyes open, you could crush running targets really easily.
Yeah, shooting movers like that, if it's not too far, it's fun, and you can learn it. But with this, I shot him, and my PH said, shoot him on the point of his shoulder. And we get, and also fast twist gives you great penetration, and that's what you need with dangerous game. Of course. And I popped him on the front shoulder, and I was using a silencer, so it was subsonic with a silencer, so it's like he didn't know what happened, and I hit him, and we saw impact. I got lucky, it's close too, but dangerous game. Yeah. You get nervous, and so I made a good shot. I was fortunate, and he didn't even run. And normally you shoot a buffalo, they haul ass. Yeah. And he turned slight quarter, and with that 45-degree bolt throw, I was fast and put one in right behind his shoulder, and he died as fast as any buffalo I've ever shot with any cartridge. And we heard him bellowing within a minute. And so, but it did turn out like the first shot through the shoulder, both lungs. So that penetration.
I'll be curious. I mean, even it'd be sort of cool because, dude, as I've gotten older and injuries catch up to you, like, dude, I don't want to shoot a 458 lot anymore. No. Like, it's not fun. Like, I've killed everything in the world with it.
There would be
I've killed everything in the world with a 375, including elephant.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Cartridge.
But like, you start doing that, getting a 375 to kill like a 416 Rigby or a little bit bigger. By doing those things and taking what's going to be a 11 twist barrel, 12 twist barrel, make it a 3 twist, and be able to get that extra power out of the same gun with no extra recoil.
Shorten it up.
That's pretty badass.
Because one great thing about 8.6, and you haven't shot it yet, but you'll see, there's virtually no recoil. Yeah. Like it works out. And my gun is 5 pounds with a 10-inch barrel with a stock that folds. So I can hike with it all day. It doesn't. So so it was pretty great. So 8.6 is interesting. I think it's going to change things, especially you growing up on the East Coast. I grew up on the East Coast, and most of your shots are. I mean, people, if they'll start being honest about what they're shooting and how far they're shooting, they're going to have all those people will have different guns within the next 5 years, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We could talk about this all day long. I mean, people just sort of using the exact wrong tool, and I'm probably guilty of it this time just because it's a pain in the ass to travel. What I also love about even my original fix, that was one of the guys. I probably had one before most people ever heard of them.
Yeah.
What I loved about it for me is now that everyone has a video thing and they're just going to an airport, where I can show up with a briefcase size. It's a gun bag, but it doesn't look like a gun bag. Everyone's not looking at you. And for me, I get that. Then some cop shows up and they have to check it and they're going through it. But most of them a lot of them don't know what they're doing, and and then they're pulling out a gun at an airport. And I'm sitting there and people are videoing. Oh my god! It's sort of a great. So that's my go-to gun. Again
for that, you can put it in a small
within
case.
Reasonable, ranges.
Yeah, I don't carry it in a gun
fix
case.
Just in a Creedmoor, dude. I'm dropping deer at 600-700 yards with it like it's nothing.
Yeah,
and that's it's not a short barrel because I didn't want to go through the SBR headache.
The 20, I think.
I think it's 18-20 inches.
Yeah,
and dude, it's a hammer.
Yeah, with my 16-inch, I carried in one of the Pelican Air a bright yellow camera case.
Yeah.
So half the time it comes out on the belt, they don't even realize there's a gun in it.
Yeah.
So, but I like that too for when you're traveling through airports and stuff. So it doesn't you.
Yeah,
it's cool, and you have a small case.
Again, just easier than creating a scene and whatever.
Yeah. Hey, Glock or 1911?
1911.
He's so Texas American right there. Did you hear that? 1911.
I just what, for me, don't get me wrong. My everyday carry gun is going to be more, polymer striker fired, just because I like some of the SIGs. It just depends on what I'm wearing. For me, I can't always in a suit conceal a 19 on my hip, so I go with something smaller. And again, some of the SIGs but for me, if I'm at a range, I just fit a 1911. You know what I mean? It just works for my hands. I even like some of the 2011s. That's probably sacrilegious to say, but I really have a lot of fun with some of those. The high end customs now that are coming out with those. Dude, when you're shooting steel, just that you have the capacity of the Glock, but in a feel. It's.
I just got one of the staccatos. I haven't even shot it yet. I mean, I've shot them before, but I just got one.
I have a couple of staccatos. I think they're just awesome. They're
I love
awesome.
shooting it.
And then all the guys sort of doing the tricked out versions of that, whether it's the Fowlers, and there's some guys doing some really cool shit with it,
but there is no comparison when you start talking about triggers to the striker guns.
No, it's not. Come on, it's not even. Yeah,
the 1911s are great, but
but by the way, I'll say this, just because everyone sort of makes the difference. Oh, Glock 1911, most of my 1911s aren't 45 anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It was funny. I showed up to a steel match. Just there's 2 years ago, whatever it was, maybe probably a little longer than that now, and literally I forgot my gun, which is sort of hard. So my buddy had literally the same, I think it was a Wilson Combat, literally the same gun as what I was shooting in just 45 steel match, but a 9mm with a tungsten guide rod and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, this feels pretty, dude. I had my best time with someone else's gun ever. I was like, that's it. So even a carry gun's not going to usually be a 45. Now I have a bunch of them so just from collecting over 25 years. So, I still have them, but my go-to is always going to be probably, a 9 something like that on a carry gun at this point. So, because there's this distinction between the Glock argument there versus the 9mm 45 argument. They're two different arguments.
They don't
have to be the same.
Those guns, 9mm, more better than 45 for handguns.
That's going to create a lot of shitstorm with someone. But I love the capacity.
Though.
I saw it at a match because I was my gun that I shoot all the time and capacity of steel, it was a 45. And I understand I was a little bit of a disadvantage there relative to running a race gun. But for a carry gun thing, I was like, okay, I can control it. The answer is no, you can't.
Not as much as a 9mm.
I can control it. I just can't control it nearly as fast. I broke all of my best times.
It's science. I mean, you're not.
It's basic. I just couldn't believe how fast I could stay on target. And I was like, in reality,
easy to shoot.
The difference to do that, coming in, if you had to make a headshot, whatever it may be, it's that's just going to make it be
follow-up shots. Yeah. I mean, just staying on target.
I hunt a lot with a 10mm, which is sort of a great combination between the two. I love that.
It's cool for hunting, yeah.
I've killed doe at 100 yards with a 10mm. It's some badass 10s that just dialed and it's great.
That's a 41 Magnum, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Probably just shy of it, but shooting 200 grain hard cast out of that thing, though, it's potent.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't be my go-to for like bear country. That's when you just go to the big single actions and.
Oh, what do you carry when you do that?
Usually a 44 or a
44.
Well, you know, so for bear country, I have that Scandium 329 PD, the Smith & Wesson. It's just very light. So when I'm fishing and stuff like Alaska,
So it's a 44.
It's a Scandium frame. You know, you probably don't want to shoot like, you know, the hardcore Corbons or, you know, Buffalo Bore or whatever, you know, these days.
But it's something that you'll have on you because it's not too heavy.
Yeah, because I got the 500 Smith for that thing. You know, I wore it for about 15 minutes the first day, and then it went in my pack. When the bear comes up, it's like my gun's beautifully, you know, 25 yards away where I can't get to it. So it became more about not just stopping power, but something I know I can wear all day long for 10 days straight, not even think about it, not have back pain. You know, in proper bear country, I'd probably rather go to the 454 and have like one of my Freedom Arms or like a, you know, BFR, like, you know, in 454, because I think that's just a great round. I shoot do a lot of, you know, deer hunting with them. Like,
yeah, it's great.
You know, where I was from in New York, right? You couldn't, half the places I hunt or whatever, like you couldn't even have a rifle season. Like, so
that's
shotgun
why you have
way.
all the handguns.
That's why I have all the, you know, that's why I got into like the, you know, the XP stuff and, you know, handguns that are 600 yard capable.
Thomas, that's like bolt gun pistols, but that are in rifle calibers with like whatever 10 to 16 inch barrels, but it's considered a handgun. So then you can.
Yeah, it's on my concealed weapons permit. I can hunt it. I have a 338 Lapua improved in an XP, and it's like one of those. I was like, I don't know, I'm going to shoot that ever again. That's
got to be the loudest gun ever.
To get anything out of it, you sort of have to mount a rifle scope with turrets. Otherwise, ranging. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get a little close to that thing for my liking. You know, just stopping it with your wrist.
Well, Thomas, can you think of anything before we end it?
So what's next? Where are you going next? What's your next hunt?
Listen, like I said,
after your moose today.
Yeah, the moose is, you know, that's a bucket list, and it has been for a long time.
Yeah,
so
I'm
like it's like that. You know, it's crazy. Like I don't get to do as much bucket list stuff as I want, as I've been checking off a lot of the dream hunts, and so this is.
Well, you can come up with more. That's the great thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely. You know, I want to do some more of the Asia stuff. I've done a lot of Mongolia.
Oh, you like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go like, you know, the Tajikistan, some of the really.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps shadier parts of the world, but like, you know, awesome places once you get out of the sort of the political areas and into the mountains.
Yeah.
You know, I have some great friends that do a bunch of that, and it's just the stories I hear is like that would be next for me if I could. You know, I'd love to do all of that. That would be, you know, that's sort of next bucket list, I guess.
Yeah, those are the most difficult hunts.
Yeah,
like
Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Dagestan. You know, like some of these stands. You know, when you're hunting at 15,000 feet altitude, and like,
which is a whole nother thing. That alone, but then not speaking the language, conditions, like.
Well, some of these places
get stranded and die.
Like Mongolia, you know, we flew from Miami to Istanbul. It was like 9.5 hour flight. From Istanbul to Ulaanbaatar is another like 9.5 hour flight. From Ulaanbaatar, we drove 20-something hours on dirt roads. On dirt road just to get to base camp. You know what I mean? So you're in like the middle of nowhere. Like some of the adventure of getting to camp and like some of the stands is probably like.
That's cool. It reminds some of those hunts. I mean, I've been on, well, different but similar as far as difficulty to get there and things. And it reminded me of the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I want to go to, I guess it's one of the stands so I can like relive the Spies Like Us, like the road to Dushan Bay, and we're going. You know what I mean? Like but like it literally is that. You know what I mean? Like, and so you know, for me, half of those hunts, is the adventure of it. So you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's the road travel, the overlanding, the
adventure that most people don't get.
You know what I mean? Like
participate in.
Correct.
Like, yeah, that's
now it's cool. You know, Florida now. I'm just starting to. I used to do a lot of this anyway, but like just having a boat and like starting to explore the Bahamas and like running over there by yourself and like fishing and camping out on a beach and bringing your pole spears and like you just.
Yeah, it's a cool thing with Field Ethos. All the guys that I know and. A lot of them have, for you have two lives. You have this life and you have your business life, but it really is an adventure brand, and all the guys are incredibly into adventure.
Yeah, they are, and it's really cool. Between like you have guys that are really accomplished in their respective fields, also, which is kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like there's always someone that really
Alan. with
whether Alan, as a bow hunter, and Scobies are super knowledgeable. Whether it be guns and hunting, and all these different walks of life, and everyone's sort of but everyone's also looking to have a good time. So, there's nothing worse than getting stuck in hunting camp with the guy that thinks he knows fucking everything and wants to teach you. I've had that a couple times, because I'll put myself out there for some of the big hunts, and some guy at an auction at a big, function buy it, and then they want to teach you about hunting, and then they're like, oh, they actually probably know a lot more about this than it's kind of it's just an awesome group of guys to hang out with. They're the kind of guys you could probably have fun in a prison somewhere, you know what I mean, and be like, yeah, we're still having a good time.
That's definitely Scoby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
well, man, okay. Well, is Thomas anything else? Is that it? Or anything from you?
Hey, man, we'll cover it whenever, we can do it again.
Next time on the way back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, man, so good luck on the moose hunt.
Thank you.
I'm rooting for you. Oh, my God.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
yeah, thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure.
I want to see a picture of this moose.
Me too. Yeah, it's one of those, because I've been wanting it so long, they're like, we can find a big. I'm like, I don't know. Let's just find a legal one. And I'm good. I'm in this hunt. I'm definitely going in. If you'd shoot it on the last day, shoot it on the first day, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't want to eat tag soup on this one.
Because Maine is vast too.
They could just not be there. They could be. You could see it.
That in Alaska, that part of. Most of Maine is the last mainland frontier.
Oh yeah, no, it's really remote. I went up to the camp actually before just to check out some stuff, and it's the middle of nowhere. And, with moose, it's just they can be gone. The biggest moose I ever shot, the guy was like, "Why don't we see if it's closer to the river tomorrow?" And I was like, "Nope,
no, they cover ground."
It was a 3-day recovery through swamp up to my chest, and a Yukon moose hindquarter that weighs 300 pounds, definitely almost drowned a few times just trying to get the thing out of there. Yeah. But it was 100% the right call because they just weren't rutting, they weren't coming to the water. But moose, they can just disappear. So it's
and when you see one, you want to shoot. You just got to. You just got to get after.
Just go.
It. Yeah. Yeah, you good? Okay.
Awesome, man.
Well, thanks, man.
Good luck
with you. Yeah.